Hello everyone, welcome to the Alchemy IAS NCERT classes. Previously we have started with the Indian Polity NCERT class, chapter 1. We have started from 6th standard NCERT. Chapter 1 was covered already in the previous video. So this is a continuity of this chapter, the chapter 1 to chapter 2. So today's session we'll start with the chapter 2, diversity and discrimination. So this is a chapter 2 coming under 6th standard NCERT, the chapter which is related to the unit 1 diversity. It has two chapters. One is we have already studied regarding the meaning of diversity, what does mean by exactly the diversity, and we have seen the examples related to diversity in India, diversity in terms of religious diversity, linguistic diversity, cultural diversity, racial diversity, geographical diversity. All these aspects we have studied in the previous session. If anybody have just started this class for the first time, you can also refer to our YouTube channel where already the first class will be available. You can subscribe to this channel as well in order to refer these NCERT classes. Other than Indian Polity, we also have the NCERT classes separately for history and science. So those chapters, those classes also you can watch in order to assist your preparations. Anyway, come back to this session. So our chapter here is today is diversity and discrimination. This is the part of Indian Polity NCERT classes. In this chapter, this is exploring the inequality that face even though we have the differences within our given settings. In India, we can see diversity, but there are certain inequality that we face in India. The one such a reason because of we have these differences in terms of religion, culture, language, racial and geographical and other factors. Due to this diversity, we can also see the presence of discrimination or inequality. These are the aspects will be covered under this particular chapter. Now, will we start with the first area here. Moving on to the first topic covered under this chapter, that is and prejudices. So, chapter start with explaining a concept here. What exactly mean by prejudices? So, the initial paragraph in this chapter explaining the differences that we have, the diversity that we have, that is we are different in terms of the way that we live, the language that we speak, the games that we play and also the geography that we live. All these geographical historical factors were contribute to differences that we have in India in terms of religion, culture, linguistic, racial and all other aspects. And if you observe the religion particularly, there are 8 popular religion in the world. All these 8 famous religion you can see in India, which is an example of the religious diversity that we have. More than 1,600 languages that we have in India, which is also an example of linguistic diversity that we have. And even if we take one particular language, the way the people speak in this language will be different from one region to another region. They have a mother tongue. Even the way they speak this mother tongue will be different from one local area to another local area. And we have many dances which are classical dances, folk dances. This is another examples of the cultural diversity, the form of dances that we have in India. All these are examples of the difference that we have. But sometimes we forget to celebrate the differences, the diversity that we have. Rather, we prefer the comfortable zone where we prefer to live only the people who had the similar way of life, similar belief system, similar kind of culture that we have. We used to live with them. But whenever we see a person who had a different belief system, different language, different dress code, or the way they wear dresses will be different. If we see some other people who are entirely different from our way of life, then we will feel uncomfortable or we may not be able to mingle with them. For example, whenever we visit any forest regions, especially nearest to the forest region, we can see a tribal community will be residing there. But the way the tribal community wear a clothes, the language which they speak will be different, the skin tone, the racial differences will be different when we compare with us. The way of life, the practice, religion, tradition, everything will be different when we consider these people nearest to the forest region, those who belong to the tribal community. When these situations arise, we feel like not like mingling with them or not engaging with them. We feel that maybe these kind of people opinion may also resulting into forming some prejudices we may have towards the another person or the another community. So this chapter explaining how we may have this kind of prejudices towards one community over the other community. So this area that is covered under this particular this area in the paragraph. So it is start with explaining what exactly mean by the concept prejudices. In order to explain the term prejudices, it has given an example of how we perceive the people in rural areas, how we have the perception about the people residing in urban areas. So the rural life and the urban life, when we take an example in Indian context. So this chapter is also giving certain examples, some statement. So whether is there any statement which we make our own like judgments or opinion on the people who residing in rural area or urban area. So we can go through this statement which are given in this NCERT chapter. Like more than 50% of all Indians are living in villages. This is one statement that they have given here in the rural area. Do you agree or disagree? So these are particularly with respect to the data that we have. But whenever we say such fact figure, it has to be accordance with the data that we have or report some maybe government official. Like those data only will be justifying the fact whenever we say that more than 50% residing in village area. Then second one, people in villages do not like to use modern technology. This is a kind of prejudices that we have towards the rural sections, that we make a judgment here or opinion here, because these people residing in rural area may have an access to modern technology, modern digital devices, but that doesn't mean by they don't like modern technology. The reason may be it could be due to the inaccessibility to the modern technological devices or infrastructure in this rural area. That's why they were unable to get an access to the uses of the modern technology. It doesn't mean by they don't like. So this is an example of that we may have some kind of prejudices toward these sections of the people residing in rural areas. In peak harvesting and plantation season, the family spend 12 to 14 hours of working in the field. It is also may not be true. It is also we have to analyze through the report research, only then we can say that the people in reside in village area or rural area will be engaged with this agricultural activity most of the time. Then another one, villages are forced to migrate to city in search of work. In what factor that is leading them to prefer working in urban city or city? Then there are other reasons as well. It not necessarily mean by they were forced to migrate from rural society into urban society or village into the cities. There are many other multiple factors may be resulting into this migration. So we have to study this area so according to research. But we make some prejudices, and according to these assumptions, the opinion that we may have, we make some judgment on about the rural sections of the people. Next one, urban people. So the example here, life in the city is easy, people here are spoiled and lazy. Again here you can see certain keyword here which are examples of the prejudices that we have towards urban people. In cities, families spend very little time with each other. It may not be true. Some family would be prefer to take time, because even though they are residing in cities or urban lifestyle they were following, but still they will prefer some time for spending with the family, maybe having some entertainment together with family, maybe going for a movie or a park. This way also they engage and spend with the family. Not necessarily that all the urban like people who residing in urban city mostly will not spend, or little time only will be given to families. And another examples of the prejudices that we have towards these people residing in urban areas. People in city only care about money and not about the people. Another examples of the prejudices, it is not true. Maybe because it is not because of the people who residing in rural areas or urban area. It is about the people attitude towards the another person, towards the sections, towards society. Depending upon the personality of a person, it would change from one person to another person. Not necessarily because they are residing in cities, they are residing in rural area. We cannot say that they are only care about money, they will not care about the people. Is again another examples of the prejudices that we make towards the sections of the people who residing in urban areas or rural areas. So these are the examples which are given in this particular chapter in order to explain the concept prejudices. So prejudices, the meaning of the prejudice is also given in this paragraph. You can see here which are already highlighted in this PDF now. Prejudices means that It is we are making some judgment towards the other people negatively, or we see them they are inferior to us. So, it is making some judgments without any research, without any fact, by only seeing one particular section may be doing some act, by observing only few sections of the people doing some act, we may make some judgment towards those sections of the people, and these kind of negative formation of the judgment would be said that the prejudices. For example, we have already given an example. These are the example. People in village do not like to use modern technology is an example of the prejudices that we have towards rural sections of the people, because it is not necessarily mean by they don't like use of modern technology. It is due to the lack of access to the modern digital devices technology they have due to lack of infrastructure. There are other factors is the matter. There are other factors contributed to this issue which the rural people and sections of the people residing in rural area face in India. So, these are the things that we can say that we form some judgment. So, this judgment that we make about some other sections of the people negatively, or we may think that they are inferior to us, these are examples of the prejudices that we have. So, this chapter explaining what exactly mean by prejudices. Similarly, they are also given another example. For example, if you think English is the best language, this is a prejudice that we have. English is the only best language. Other languages are bad or not good as like English. Other languages are not important. Then we will make a judging people the way they speak a language. So, those who speak English, with these prejudices, how we make judgment? Those sections of the people who speak English, we may say that they are very good, they are having good quality. So, these are the judgment that we are making because we think that English is best language, and whenever any sections of the people who speak other language, any other language other than English, we may think that they are inferior, they are not good. So, we make judgment according to the way the people who speak based on the language. So, these are another examples that we have a prejudices towards another sections of the people or an individual because the language which they speak is different. So, this is one example of the prejudice that they have given in this paragraph. Moving on to, similarly, it could be with respect to the religion a person follows, a belief system a person follows. So, we make judgment that this particular religion is good, another particular religion is different, they are not good. This way also we may judge people based on the religion which they follow, people based on the color that they have, especially whenever we have watched movies earlier. Most of the time we have seen that all these heroes or heroine will be having a color which are fair in color, but in this kind of movie we have seen these dark color skin will be preferred for the villains or anti-hero roles, and we expected that, and in our society also we see that those who had color differences, maybe dark or white or any other kind of skins, we may make a judgment that all these dark color, the thieves may have mostly this dark color. So, here also is a prejudice. We are making a prejudice here based on the color of the skin a person may have. That is also not true. It not necessarily because of the skin color is there that is also leading to them into commit some crime. It is not. It does not have any link between the color of the skin that we have and the actions that we do. So, there is no any connection between them. So, the same way the cloth they wear, the accent that the people who speak, especially whenever we consider the language as a one base. The people who speak one language will be different from one to another. Even in regional language, the way they speak will be different from one to another. So, it may not be the way because of the accent is different, we cannot make any prejudices. So, these are the examples which are given in this particular paragraph. Then this chapter also explaining another concept to explain the discrimination that we face in India or inequality that we face in India, that is the next concept, the stereotype. We create stereotypes. How we create stereotypes? In order to explain this concept of stereotype, this chapter has been given examples of the gender perspective, the stereotype that we create about boys and girls. When we take an examples of the girls and boys, the quality that a boy may have, the quality that a girls may have. So, in order to explain this particular differences between these two gender, how we create stereotype towards these two sections, here there are statements were given. And it was asked to the students in the 6th standard in order to classify or in order to arrange this statement in two columns. One is the characters that we can see in girls, in the quality that we can see in boys. These two ways the students were given a task in order to make an arrangement of these following statements. The statements are, they are well behaved, they are soft spoken and gentle, they are physically strong. These are the statements were given. Now when we consider any of these statements, for example, they are physically strong. If a person has some kind of stereotype towards these sections of the gender, they may prefer that by observing, because of this stereotype, which is an image they might have, may be influenced by movie, may be influenced by the elder people who talked about the gender differences, these boys and girls. People may prefer that the physically strong means they are boys. So they prefer this statement here, they are physically strong. So if we have some prejudices towards one sections of the gender, then we may make some judgment like boys are physically strong. It is also not a true. It does not have any connection to the gender that the person belonging to. But we make a judgment that we think that only boys are physically strong. So these conditions, these image that we may have resulting into creating some stereotype towards one gender. Another one, they are emotional. Here also we may prefer that girls are more emotional. These are the conditions that we have been taught in early childhood period, so that we may prefer that the girls are mostly emotional as compared to the men or boys. Then we will give these point, this statement here. They are good at sports. Here also the physical factors will come. Then we used to prefer that generally will prefer the good at sports will be given to boys. They don't cry. Another examples of the boys should not cry, men should not cry. This is the society make a condition that because you are a boy, you should not cry, you don't cry because you are a strong man or boy. These are the conditions that we have seen in our society which are taught to the particular gender. So there is no any connection between the gender that we have, the quality that we have. Each of these two gender may have each of this quality according to the individual, especially the uniqueness of the individual. Depending upon that, it would vary from one person to another person. It does not have any connection to the gender the person is belong, maybe girl or boy or transgender. So this is how this particular chapter explaining in this box about the stereotype that we create towards two gender, girls and boys. And they also explaining the same context, same issue with respect to an example they have given here is they don't cry. An example of towards a stereotype that we create towards the boys, that the boys should not cry, they don't cry. Generally these are the things which are associated with the boys. Don't cry because you are a boy, boys are brave, they don't cry. This kind of condition will be there. With this condition in future, because this boy later will grow and will become an adult male member, even though this person may face some difficulty, angry, pain, but the society told earlier was, you are a boy, you are a man, you should not cry. So they were unable to express their emotions, and what will happen, it will affect their personality, the behavior, it may resulting into some violent character among this male member. So these are the pressures or the behavioral changes would be created because of this condition that we are teaching to these boys and girls. So these were the examples that we may create some stereotypes towards the another sections of the people. Same thing is also explained here in illustrations, like the person who have different skill, differently able, they also face the same kind of discrimination, and the people make some judgment or stereotypes towards them. Whenever we see these people having different skill, different special skill, we may make judgment because of their, for example, you can see here a statement is given that is her mind okay? Just because my legs are wobbly, people think my mind is wobbly too. When a person physically, when we consider, yes, there is a problem with their legs, but doesn't mean by their mind is also weak. Their mind will be more stronger than us. So these are the kind of stereotype that we make. Similarly, some people will make joke or fun out of a person who are having a different skills. So these are the kind of situation that we may have seen in our society, where people have this kind of stereotype towards one sections of the people. So this is what explained in this particular box regarding a vulnerable section that we have, the children with a special need or differently abled. Next, Following this is also trying to explain the same situation, that is we have kind of preconditions towards one section, that is this is only the way that boy should act, this is only the way that girl should be act. So, these are the stereotype that we create. So, this is explaining the concept, the stereotype that we have. We fix a people into one image and that we create a stereotype. It may not be true when we observe in real manner. So, that is entirely different from in this context. So, we create stereotypes because of a person belonging to a gender, because of a person believe in another different religion, because of a person speak a different language. This is also the way that we create stereotype, maybe in terms of caste also. When we take any person belonging to one particular caste, we also create or stereotype towards one section to one community or one caste to with another caste. These are the examples in this chapter explaining about the stereotype that we have. Then here also giving finally the solution what. So, whenever one section or one or two people doing some act, we may think that all the people who are boys, all the person who are girls or male or woman, that we may think that everybody is same because they are also thief or they are all weak, they are emotionally weak. This way we make judgment, this way we make or create stereotypes. So, we have to avoid this kind of creating stereotype. We have to focus on the unique qualities that every individual that they have. We have to observe their quality that will be different from one person to another person. Each person has a value and dignity and they may have their own skills and quality. That is more important rather than making any stereotype towards one section with another section. Then this chapter explaining about the issue that we have in India in the current context as well regarding inequality and the discrimination. So, it starts with the discrimination. Discrimination happen when we act on these prejudices and stereotype. So, already this chapter explained two concepts, prejudices and stereotype. Prejudice means that we make judgment towards another sections of the people negatively, or we may think that they are inferior to us. Stereotype also the same way, we may have some preconditioned image, based on that fixed image we create some stereotype. They are these, they are that. So, this way we make some creation of the stereotype. With this, whenever we act on these prejudices and already we have the stereotype, the attitude that we have, this would resulting into an issue in our society, discrimination. Discrimination means that when we may have an access to education, when we may have an access to public service, when we are having an access to purchase or anything because of our affordability, then the same facilities, the same service may not be available to another section, because one may be due to the caste the person belonging to will be very different, maybe lower caste, maybe because of the person follow a religion will be different to us, maybe because of the language may not be majoritarian language, maybe minority language. So, this is the reason that because whatever we enjoy is not available to another person, that we prevent those sections of the people getting education, we prevent those people getting any healthcare facility. Even if, for example, here in this chapter has given an example of a public well. A public well means every person irrespective of the caste or religion should be able to use those public well as a facility water resources. But whenever we prevent any person taking water from the same water that we take is an example of discrimination based on maybe caste discrimination. In many areas of Indian society we have seen already in previous, whenever we observe the historical period, we have seen these kind of incidents in India. Similarly, the same cup of the tea we are not allowing the another person to take because of our attitudes, because of our prejudices, because of our stereotype. So, in order to explain the discrimination that we face, it also again going back to the previous chapter examples of the story, the Samir Ek and Samir Do. So, we have studied this story where the two boys meeting in a traffic, they had an interaction, and Samir Ek was belonging to the minority community, Muslim community, and he could only speak Hindi language, he was not going to the school. But Samir Do had an access to education, going to the school, having a good background, can speak in English. So, little more in terms of economically, little bit more better condition is there, but in case of Samir Ek is belonging to a poor sections of the family faces many problems. That's why he had to, instead of going to the school, he had to go and sell the newspaper. This is a story again repeating here. So, this is trying to say that we have many inequalities, not just diversity that we have. The story is also connecting here. So, there are differences between these two boys because their religion they follow is different, the community which they follow is different, economically they are different, the language they speak is different, but because of even difference is there, but this has resulted into an inequality in terms of economic terms. In economic terms also they are having an inequality, one is coming from a poor background, another from little bit better a rich background. So, this also result into the accessibility in education, they do not have it. These are the issue that we can see in that particular story. So, that is what explained in here in this paragraph. Here in this chapter also given in a box about a term Dalits. We also have heard about the term Dalit. Dalit is a term that is used to call by the people who belong into a community, that is they were earlier was considered as untouchable community, but now this community call themselves as Dalit. It means by broken, because they say that this Dalit shows that because of these social prejudices in the caste discrimination, the caste hierarchical structure, because of prejudices and discrimination, the community entirely was broken. So, that is why they themselves call as Dalit community. Currently the government, this community considered as under the government categorization under scheduled caste community. So, they also even today they also face many discrimination in the higher education institutions, in the society in general. So, these communities also face many discrimination because the caste is different, because the community have different historical background which were earlier considered as untouchables. This is also the reason that they face many problems. So, this is a discrimination, they are also giving examples. Moving on. Then this chapter is also explaining an example of this discrimination is not experienced by not just one or few other common men, rather famous Indian leaders, famous Indians were also experienced same kind of discrimination based on their caste, based on the religion that they follow. For that, this chapter is explaining an example of the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who had experienced the similar kind of caste discrimination because he was belonging to a community known as Mahar community. Mahar community that he was born, this community was considered as untouchable in the earlier provinces, Bombay Presidency. I think it was in the Bombay Presidency. In Bombay Presidency, Mahar community was considered as untouchable. We know that there was a caste system existed earlier in India, the 4 Varna system that we have, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudras. But untouchables were considered as even not even this Varna system, they were outcast. And they were considered as untouchable, nobody can touch them. If anybody touched them, they thought that they will be polluted. So, this pollution, non-pollution concept was there in our Indian society earlier due to this caste discrimination. So, one of the community in those period was Mahar community in Maharashtra region. So, he explaining the experience that he had because he was belonging to the Mahar community. It was explaining the story when he was with his brother and cousin went to this railway station Koregaon in Maharashtra, is current Maharashtra. So, where he was waiting for his father to come, but unfortunately the father was not didn't shown up, but they had a meeting with the station master there. You can see the image where Ambedkar is a representative image. Ambedkar and his brother and cousins were there and they were waiting for their father. In between, station master was came and inquired, why you are sitting here, do you have any ticket, like that. These kind of questions were asked. So, initially the station master was very friendly because these children were well dressed, including Dr. B.R. Ambedkar were well dressed. So, the station master thought that these children may be belonging to the higher caste, maybe Brahmins. But later in between their dialogue, the station master was asked which community that you belong to. Then later they explained that this is our name, we belong to Mahar community. Then the station master got to know that okay, Mahar community is considered as untouchable community in Bombay Presidency. So, immediately because of this, he had a prejudices towards the lower caste community, he had a prejudices stereotype towards the lower caste or untouchable. So, immediately his behavior, everything was changed. He went away and he didn't continue to the communication with his child. Later they were abandoned, even father, they were came to this railway station because of they were waiting for father, but father had not turned up in that railway station. Finally abandoned, including the station master also not giving any assistance or any help. So, finally whenever they were planning to return back also to home, also the persons who will be providing the travel passenger also will not be ready for that, because only the reason that Ambedkar was belonging to Mahar community, which was considered as untouchable in the Bombay presidency in those times. So, he understood that money did not work here because the society was told, because of you belonging to this particular caste or group, you can only do the job that society already prescribed because of that caste that you belong. You cannot even earn, you cannot even go to the school and learn, and you cannot even grow, and you cannot have any kind of mobility from one caste to another or one level of the society class that we have. It is not permitted. So, money will not work here, rather because people see and perceive persons according to the caste which they belong. So, this issue that we have seen this Ambedkar himself has experienced in Indian context. So, caste discrimination is an example that we have, even though we have caste diversity, but we have caste discrimination within our present context. Even in historical period also we have seen the same kind of discriminations. All this discrimination that we have because of the people act on their prejudices and the stereotypes. Moving on. Then this chapter explaining about striving for equality. So, there is an inequality that we face. So, we have to fight for the equality that we must have. Everyone should treat equally, even though we have differences in terms of religion, we have differences in terms of language, we have differences in terms of the color that we have differences in terms of the racial diversity that we have, but all these we have to fight for the equality, the right that we have. When we observe historical period also, in historically we have seen that people fought not against only the British, but also we fought for, you can see here statement, people who are during those freedom struggle, they not only fought against British, but also fought for their right, including equality. For example, Dalit were fought for their caste discrimination they faced. Women were fought in those period for their equal right to get educations. Tribals also fought for their exploitations. Then similarly, peasants also fought for their freedom and equality from the money lenders, zemindari, they were also exploited this community. So, all these sections of the people in those period also fought for their freedom, but particularly with respect to equality that they should have. Later when we have started, when we got freedom, before that freedom we also had already constituted the Constitution Assembly in order to draft a new constitution for the new independent India. So, when we got freedom in 1947, the makers of Indian constitution including Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and other constitutional makers, they also understood the importance of addressing the problem that we face, because we have differences, we have diversity, we have these kind of issues of discrimination in all terms. It could be caste, it could be religious discrimination, many things that we have already seen. So, the constitutional makers, the makers of the constitution ensured that whenever we draft a constitution, we should have a fundamental rights, we should have a right which explicitly mentioned about equality as a right, fundamental rights. So, because this understanding they had, they maintained a fundamental right under Article 14 to 18 regarding equality, which also deal with equality of all persons. You can see here I am again taking this page little bit more larger here, constitution of making the whenever those who were drafting the constitution of India ensured that all people of India were considered as equal, and equality of all the persons in front of the law. Everyone has equal right and opportunity. This is covered under current constitution under Article 16. So, whenever we apply for government job, public opportunity in terms of employment opportunity, it must be given equally to everyone, irrespective of the religion that we have, irrespective of the caste that we have. Like these sections we can see under Article 16, Article 14 of Indian Constitution, fundamental right again, right to equality was covered, equality before law and equal protection of the law. And Article 17, we know that Ambedkar himself has experienced this untouchability, discrimination. So, he had this in mind, that is there should be one provision and also legal provisions, law provisions that prevent and abolish complete form of untouchable practices, that is abolition of untouchability that we can see in within our fundamental right to equality under Article 17. So, these are the articles that we have added to this constitution. Is example that our constitution makers were very clear that we may face many discrimination in our society due to our differences, due to our diversity, but it must be addressed through the law that we make, the fundamental supremacy of the law, the constitution. So, this is a photo here, some of the members who wrote our Constitution of India, the drafting committee members. And also we enjoy the religious freedom of religion, which are covered under Article 25 to 28. These articles also cover with respect to freedom of religion. Any person in India can follow any religion, nobody can force, nobody can convert from one religion to another religions. So, everybody can follow any religion without any fear of discrimination. This is also another area that we have in our constitution that maintain our unity as our stance. So, whenever you observe, go through this preamble, we can see certain keyword mentioned here. One such keyword is equality, that we follow the concept, the principle, equality of status and opportunity, and that will help us in maintaining unity and integrity in our country. So, even though this constitution that we have, still we may face many discrimination whenever we observe many situations, that is even today tribal community face many atrocities and also they were killed. So, they also face discrimination in school, higher education. These institutions should be promoting equality, should teach how to act, how to behave, how to have a good attitudes. So, these should be taught in our even in school, but we have seen in Indian context there are still discrimination faced by the marginalized community or weaker sections or this minority. So, these problem must be addressed through legal enforcement, etc. So, these are the points which are covered under this particular chapter. With that, you can also go through the question that we have in this particular chapter 2, diversity and discrimination. So, the previous chapter was with respect to understanding the concept of diversity. In those chapters, we have explained the differences that we have in India in terms of religious, linguistic, cultural, caste, racial, and the reasons were historical reason, migration is another reason, geographical reason. And we also maintain a unity with these differences, including we may have a diversity. These are the chapter covered under chapter 1. Chapter 2, more of a discussion over the inequality that exists in our society in and around us, how this inequality happens. So, we have studied two concepts in this chapter. One is prejudices and the second one is the stereotype. So, what exactly mean by the prejudices, what exactly mean by the stereotype? When we understood these two concepts, then it was explaining how discrimination happens in India. Discrimination happens when we are acting on prejudices and stereotype. So, discriminations are also faced even though we may have a differences. With this diversity is another reason that we face inequality and discrimination. This is what is covered under this particular chapter. So, that in order to explain this, it has been given many examples in different perspectives. Gender perspective was there, religious perspective was there, linguistic perspective was there, caste perspective was there. I hope you have understood what exactly covered under these two chapters which are part of Unit 1, diversity. With this, I am ending this NCERT live session. We will continue with more sessions, and the upcoming session will be on the Unit 2 regarding the government. Thank you all for watching the video. We will see you in the next session.